Hi, this is Attorney Todd Hollis, and welcome to another episode of Civil Action. Well, there's a hot race going on here in Allegheny County for Court of Common Pleas judge, and I have three of the hottest candidates here to introduce themselves and to discuss their platforms with you. Candidates, welcome. How are you?
Good. Thank you, Todd.
Good evening. Good afternoon.
All right.
God bless
All
you.
right. Hey, I know you guys are busy. We got a whole lot to talk about. You know, the essence of this show is basically for you guys to introduce yourselves, to discuss your platforms, you know, obviously, so potential constituents have an opportunity to put the face with the names. That work?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Well, let's do
Thank
it.
you.
Mr. Brian Malkin, I see you at the top of my screen. Why don't you do me a favor and introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your legal experience?
Thank you, Todd. Yep. Hello, my name's Brian Malkin. I've been a trial lawyer for 25 years. I'm living in North Hills as a Franklin Park councilman with my wife, Christina. We've been married 16 years, and I have my three daughters, 15, 14, and 13. I went to Washington Jefferson College and graduated with majors in computer science, mathematics, and philosophy with honors, and was inducted in the Phi Beta Kappa Honor Society. I had the privilege of attending University of Pittsburgh School of Law. My first job in the law was working for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania as an attorney decision writer for the Workers' Compensation Bureau. There I drafted decisions that would be adopted by my assigned judge, Roselia Parker. She taught me the hard work of making fair and just decisions for litigants. After that, I took a job as a civil litigator and handled all types of cases from workers' compensation, unemployment, criminal, probate, Social Security, and a vaccine injury case. I then moved to a law firm where I tried hundreds of cases with and without juries. Along that way, I studied and passed the patent bar and became a patent lawyer. For the last 11 years, I've been working as an intellectual property law firm, handling trademarks, patents, and copyrights, working on anti-counterfeiting cases online. In fact, in the last few years, I've filed and overseen cases here in the Western District, and I'm proud to have helped take down hundreds of counterfeit and infringing listings on Amazon, eBay, Wish, and Alibaba. In the process, I've saved my small clients' businesses from going under. For community service, as I said, I'm a Franklin Park Borough Councilman. For the last 10 years, I worked and volunteered my time both on Franklin Park boards. I also worked for pro bono cases. I worked in the Allegheny County Housing Court. I worked through the North Hills Community Outreach. I believe that all of these things were a calling that was something that I needed to do to give back to my community, and I was pleased and proud to do it. I think that judges are servants, community servants, and the community service that I've done is appropriate to continue if I'm honored to be elected as a judge. Thank you very much.
Mr. Malkin, I certainly appreciate the fact that you took time out of your busy schedule, you know, to come on my show, and you're certainly welcome. Judge Elliot Howsie, how are you, sir?
Man, thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
All right. Hey, introduce yourself. I mean, I've known you forever, but introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your legal experience.
All right, thank you. So my name is Judge Elliot Howsie, but I grew up in Wilkinsburg, and I was the first in my family to attend college and graduate. I attended Indiana University of Pennsylvania for undergraduate studies and graduate studies, and I obtained a bachelor's and master's degree in criminology. But while attending graduate school, I worked full-time at Schumann Juvenile Detention Center in the social service field, working with the kids there, trying to help them, get their lives back on track and reintegrate back into society after having been sentenced to a period of incarceration. And I worked with those kids. But then I was fortunate enough to get accepted to Duquesne University School of Law, the evening program. And while attending law school full-time, I worked two full-time jobs. And I worked from 9 to 5 and a social service agency where we did in-home family therapy, working with families who were court involved due to mental health issues, drug and alcohol issues, homelessness, just addressing the issues that brought the family to the front door of the family court division, working with those families from 9 to 5, going to law school from 6 to 9, and then working at the Wellstel's, now known as Family Links, but at that time it was the Wellstel Independent Living Program, and I worked from 11 to 7. So I basically would go to law school, go to work in the morning, go to law school in the evening, and then go to work overnight at the Wellstel. So I worked two full-time jobs. But then upon graduating, I was fortunate to get a job working as a judicial law clerk for the Superior Court of Pennsylvania, which is our intermediate appellate court for the Honorable Justin Johnson. And I worked there for a year. After doing that, I was able to get a job in the Allegheny County District Attorney's Office, where I prosecuted child abuse cases. Any case involving the physical abuse, sexual abuse, or neglect of a child, I prosecuted. And I did that for 5.5 years until I ultimately started my own private practice. I was in private practice doing criminal defense, personal injury, some family law. Did that for approximately 6.5 years till I was able to become the first African American in the history of our county to serve as a director of the Allegheny County Public Defender's Office. And while serving as a director of the Public Defender's Office, we made a host of reforms and changes in that office to improve the quality of the service that is provided to the people that come from the communities, like the community that I come from. And we were able to reform the office and make a number of changes. Hopefully I have an opportunity to discuss those in detail. But after serving as a director of the Public Defender's Office for about 7.5 years, I was able to be nominated by Senator J. Costa, appointed by Governor Wolf, and unanimously confirmed by the Pennsylvania Senate to serve as a judge in the Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas, where I currently serve now. And after becoming a judge, I was immediately assigned to the family division, but I stayed in the family division for the last 1.5 years. And at some point, I received a call from our president judge, Kim Clark, and our administrative judge of the criminal division, Jill Rangos, and they asked me to come over to the criminal division due to shortages that we were having in the criminal courts with judges. And I gladly did that. But the one thing I did that I thought was important is I continued to maintain my family court caseload, because I did not want to walk out on those families and then have them experience a level of uncertainty or unpredictability, waiting for a new judge, waiting for someone to get up to speed on their cases. I knew the families, I knew the cases, so I kept my cases. So I'm currently working in both divisions, criminal and family division, and happy to be a member of the Court of Common Pleas. So thank you for the opportunity to share. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you being here. I didn't know that you were working in both divisions, but I certainly knew of your well-documented background and all the great things that you've done thus far. So thank you, Judge. I appreciate it. Miss Watson, how are you?
Great, Todd. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. It's been a while since we've seen each other.
Well, it's been a while since everybody's seen each other except on Zoom, right?
Well, congratulations on your candidacy. Again, I've known you since I've started practicing law, but for those that don't know you, why don't you do me a favor and introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your background?
Thank you. My name is Wrenna Watson. I'm a candidate for judge of the Court of Common Pleas. I ran in 2005 and 2007 and received the nomination for appointment by Governor Rendell. At that time, however, the Republicans blocked my nomination in the Senate, so I did not ascend to the bench. So I'm here a ways down the road again and seeking for your support and your vote to take this into a win. I'm a lifelong Pittsburgher for generations. My dad, his mom, grandfather, everybody is from Pittsburgh. We were all born and raised here. I also raised my daughter here. I live with my dad right now. He's 97 years old. He's doing well. And my mom passed away 3 years ago. I came to stay here with him. I also raised my daughter as a single mother. And I am very proud to say that she's doing super well at 36 out on her own. I'm a practicing attorney for 29 years. I have represented thousands of children, families, business owners, persons in the community, persons like yourselves that were struggling with the court, with being overwhelmed with court and life situations. I've represented them in every division and also handled a multitude of other matters, legal and otherwise, because sometimes people need help and it's not exactly a legal situation, but I was there to help. I also, in my 29 years of being an attorney, have sat as a judge and adjudicated over 50,000 cases in the course of 26 years of my practice. I sat as a judge of the Pittsburgh Magistrates Court. I handled 22,000 cases there. I also have been a Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board hearing officer for Western PA and Erie. I chaired city planning, Pittsburgh City Planning, and Pittsburgh Zoning Board of Adjustments for 8 years. And I'm also a mental health hearing officer, and I've been doing that for 26 years. Now, I have a question for you all. If you or your family had to go to court, you found yourself in a situation where someone you loved had to appear before a judge. What type of experience would you want to have? Would you want them to have? Well, I promise you that if you spoke to anyone that's been in my courtroom over the 26 years that I've been adjudicating cases, they would tell you that I'm fair. I listen to both sides of the case before I make a decision. I fully listen. And I make a good decision, and they get treated with respect. Everyone gets treated with respect in my courtroom. I sat with my dad, and he is the Honorable J. Wrenna Watson. He sat the bench for nearly 40 years. He retired at the age of 80, and I learned from him many, many things. But among those things, I learned good judicial temperament and demeanor. I also learned excellence and preparation. I come here today to stand before you to ask for your vote, to ask you to put me on the bench. The community, my run is for, not just for me, it's for my community. It is for diversity on the bench. It's for women. It's for children. It's for each of you. And I am well prepared and well qualified. I can sit on the bench tomorrow. I've adjudicated over 50,000 cases. And most importantly, I have a heart for people and everyone. We talk about justice for all. I believe in justice for all. And I have exercised justice for all in each of my courtrooms. I thank you, and God bless you.
Well, thank you, Ms. Watson. I appreciate it. Hey, listen, this show is really about, I would say, introductions, right? People, want to be able to translate the name to what they hear and what they see. And this is the first time that I think in a long time, where people can actually do that using social media. So I got a small game that I want you guys to play. All right. Here's the rules of the game. So I sent to you guys, a questionnaire package, and there are 26 issues that were raised by members on my social media platform. So I'm going to ask you guys to pick a number 1 through 26, and then I'm going to ask you to respond basically to what that number pertains to, and then the two remaining candidates, if you choose, will be allowed to make comment on that particular issue. Does that work?
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right.
Sounds like fun.
Okay. Mr. Malkin, I see you at the top of my screen. I need a number 1 through 26, sir.
I'm going to pick 15. That's my oldest daughter's age. Thank
15.
You.
All right. Let's see what we got here. 15 comes from Mr. Christopher Floyd. He's talking about bail abatement. How do you feel about bail abatement, sir?
I think that we should get rid of cash bail. I've done the research on this. I understand what's going on in the community because of it, and it's a concern of mine. What happens is folks come into the courtroom, they're accused of nonviolent crimes. They can't pay the cash bail, and they wind up in jail. They lose their jobs, they lose their homes, they lose their families, all for an alleged non-violent crime. Where it would be safe to let them out into the community. They wouldn't be harming anybody. And all we're doing is trying to make certain they make their court date. I think that's totally inappropriate. It costs over $100 a day to house somebody like that. And all we're doing is damaging their lives. We're damaging the community. And it should be, as he says, abated. I know that there's some work going on right now in legislation, and I would fully support that. And I think that's the type of thing we need to make certain our communities don't get damaged the way they have been damaged for many, many years.
Good points. Judge Howsie, Ms. Watson, anything to add?
I do.
Okay.
So if you even look at the legislation regarding bail, if you read the statute, bail was never meant to be a punishment. Bail is meant to make sure you're going to come back to court. But, it's being used more in a punishment sort of situation. And by having these large bails and bails, period, people don't have the opportunity to get out and be and get about their life and try to prepare their case. Frankly, you can't prepare a case from jail. And so, the statute, it never meant for it to be punishment. And that's really how it is being used. Punishment before you're even convicted.
I agree. Judge Howsie.
Yeah, so I agree with both of my colleagues. It does cost approximately $103 per day to house a person in Allegheny County Jail pending trial. And so if you look at our jail population, although violent crime has gone down in Allegheny County, our jail population continues to increase. So the question becomes, who are we putting in jail? In most instances, we're putting people in jail. They're being punished for being poor. They're being placed in jail pre-trial, but due to their inability to post a monetary condition of bail. And when you look at the decision points in our court system, in our criminal justice system, at every decision point in our court system, there's a racial disparity. So when you talk about cash bail, understand that a person of color is 66% more likely to get a monetary condition of bail than other people. So you're basically punishing people for not having the resources to get themselves out of jail. And all it does is it destroys lives. And ultimately, those cases that they're sitting in jail for due to an inability to post a monetary bail, those cases will ultimately resolve themselves with a sentence of probation. So every day in Allegheny County, we have a pattern of putting people in jail for crimes that do not require jail time when they're resolved. And interestingly enough, we have worked here with our bail agency towards ending cash bail, but it's just not something that is being consistently done and implemented. But that was one of the biggest things that I was focused on doing in the public defender's office. We had a number of initiatives aimed towards getting people out of jail pre-trial, so it's just an important issue, and cash bail must end. It doesn't do anything to ensure the safety of the community. It doesn't ensure that anyone will show up for trial. It just punishes people who don't have the resources to post bail.
All right. Why don't you give me a number 1 through 26, Judge Howsie?
So I was thinking number 19. I believe that's
19 it is.
Can I add something to the last part real quickly?
Absolutely.
I just want to add that some of the other people that are being affected by bail and being jailed are our homeless population, our mental health, people with mental illness, and people with drugs addictions, the people that they should not be being jailed. We should be diverting these people and setting up other programs and things that they can take advantage of. And that's not happening either. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Judge Howsie, you said 19, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Fonda Doucet says sentence disparity across the board and in every state.
Thank you. Okay, so when we talk about sentence disparity, as I just stated, there is a racial disparity at every decision point in our criminal justice system. So when you think about sentencing, while our court system does a few things well, we still have work to do. But the one thing we do poorly, and we consistently do it, is we don't do a good job of imposing sentences. So when you think about the manner in which people are sentenced in Allegheny County, we give out longer probationary sentences after a term of incarceration than any other place in the state. Some would say than any other place in the country. But the problem with that is it does nothing more than ensure, because people have such long probationary sentences, it does nothing more than ensure that at some point that person will end up in jail for a technical violation. And if you look at the statistics and the data, it's been established that people that successfully complete anywhere from 14 to 16 months of their probation without a violation, the likelihood that they will violate their probation going forward goes down exponentially. So when we have people on probation for 4 and 5 years, it does nothing but ensure that that person will end up in jail for a technical violation. And when we look at our jail population, 50% of our jail population consists of people that are there in most instances for technical violations of probation. So when we look at sentencing and we look at the racial disparity and the issues that affect our court system, it's imperative that we begin to make data-driven decisions when it comes to imposing sentences. And we begin to impose sentences which will allow people to pay their debt to society, but then rebuild their lives and move on. We can't just have the court system hanging over people's heads indefinitely, ensuring that they'll just continue to come in and out of the court system due to technical violations and probation violations. And I just think it's something that we absolutely, as judges, we have an obligation to focus on, an obligation to change the way in which we impose sentences.
Great points. Mr. Malkin or Ms. Watson, either one of you want to add in?
I agree with Judge Howsie, of course. I think that, again, looking at the issues that occur when you have this disparity across the borders, it affects all of the Black, brown, and other colored communities at a higher rate than any other community. And this type of practice is something that needs to be abated. I'll use the word again. We have to make certain that we're not putting exorbitant fines on folks, that we're not putting exorbitant amounts of probation time on them, and that we're taking into account all of the circumstances, things that they have no control over, for instance, their economic circumstances, the conditions that led them into the system. We need to take all of that into account when we're doing sentencing, because right now there's this disparate impact, which is destroying communities and families.
Okay. Ms. Watson.
Yes, and I would like to add that in addition to sentencing disparity, we also have circumstances where if you have a marijuana charge or any drug charge, you lose your license is suspended, and then that the suspension is compounded repeatedly until when you get out of jail, you don't have a license. If you don't have a license, you can't get to a job. So the negative impact, it just is mounted against someone being able to come out and really make a choice to rehabilitate, make a choice to do something different in life. You can't not drive, then they get picked up again for driving with a suspended license. But that's and then the suspension goes on and on and on. It's like a snowball that just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's a part of, I think, that we deal with sentencing, that's a part of the legislating that needs to be reformed as well, so that we don't have those circumstances.
You know, I got to tell you, as I'm listening to each one of you guys, you know, I'm sort of like having deja vu in my head, you know, as I remember, you know, dealing with some of these very same issues. You know, going into family division and seeing somebody come in for what I thought was, I don't want to say it was inconsequential, but it was a minor matter. And, you know, the courts were imposing these people with so many obligations. It was like a maze, you know, so you're dealing with people who were already limited from the start. And then, you know, they've got 4 or 5 different programs to go to. They've got to get to court. They've got to continue to raise a family. Before you know it, you know, there's a failure at some point. And instead of, you know, the people getting help, you know, they just get more programs. They get extended time, and it just seems circular, like nothing ever gets resolved. So I'm glad to hear the perspective that you guys have. And, you know, I prayerfully, I think the courts need to change dramatically. Ms. Watson, I need a number 1 through 26, please.
22.
22. All right. Lisa Guzman says, drug addiction should be treated as a disease and not a crime. I am speaking as a person who has never done hard drugs, but whose life has been affected by drug addiction through people I care about.
Thank you. Great question. So drugs is not new to our community. As a magistrate, well, I've been a mental health hearing officer also for 26 years. And there's a Mental Health Procedures Act that works to give people treatment if they have mental illness. On the other hand, there is no legislation that provides for drug addiction to get the treatment that they need. And what I found 15 years ago, first of all, let me say, drug addiction is a disease. Alcoholism is a disease. Mental health, mental illness, people shy away and don't want to have that label, but it's all around us, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's something that we have to work on, as with drug addiction, as with alcoholism. And in my mental health hearings, probably at least 15 years ago, maybe 20, I started seeing people, families coming in, and not only did they have mental health issues, mental illness, but they also had a drug addiction. And the drug addiction was feeding and exacerbating the mental illness. And that's called dual diagnoses. Now, we couldn't, I didn't have the authority to direct anybody into a drug and alcohol program. They had to go there voluntarily. And so we had people that were trying to get help for their family. And they would come in and hope to get some mental illness help when they really needed some drug addiction help. They needed both, but we don't have that, and that needs to be changed, and that's not new. There need to be programs. There needs to be funding for the programs. Insurance needs to pay. That's a part of every problem that has anything to do with hospitalization or programs. There are things that the insurance will pay for, and then there are things that they don't. I'll be honest, in a mental health, when someone is getting mental health treatment, insurance probably pays for 5 days. Are they ready to come back? Are they fully, or have they been stabilized and ready to come back into the community? Maybe not in 5 days. I mean, some do, but maybe not. But we have that managed care situation that tells us, it's the insurance telling us what your treatment's going to be or how long your treatment's going to be, not the doctors and not your circumstances. And that needs to be changed. So yes, we drug addiction is an illness, and we do need to have not only legislation, but our people in the top, the governors, the federal government, they have to start funding this. And without the funds, it's not going to happen. We have, and it has to become a priority, both in the state and both nationally. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Judge Howsle or Mr. Malkin, either one of you want to add in?
Yes, thank you. So one of the most disturbing stories I became aware of after becoming a judge was a situation where a gentleman had been sentenced to a period of probation, lengthy period of probation. And during that time on probation, the judge took a zero tolerance approach to any violations. And this gentleman had the misfortune of testing positive one time for marijuana. He didn't have a medical marijuana card. He tested positive one time. And that judge's response was to detain that gentleman for a period of 6 months in Allegheny County Jail to the tune of $103 per day. And then as a punishment for that technical violation, it wasn't a crime of violence. There were no new arrests, no new charges. It was just a positive urine, one positive urine. He decided to sentence that gentleman to 18 to 36 months in state prison. Now, state prison costs us as taxpayers $42,000 per year. So when you do the math, we spent approximately $59,000 on incarceration when we could have taken a fraction of that money and given this gentleman treatment. He would have been able to maintain his education, his employment, his housing, his family, his car. Instead, we put him in prison with, some would say, with hardened criminals for a technical violation due to a substance abuse issue. It is counterproductive. It doesn't accomplish anything. It does nothing more than waste resources and destroy lives. We have to take a look at how we're dealing with people, and we have to take a look at how people are exiting our criminal justice system. Are they better equipped to succeed after paying their debt, or are they in this position where life just gets harder and they become more hardened, and we put them in a position where they can't get back on their feet? And I would suggest that the judge's decision to sentence that gentleman to 18 to 36 months in state prison for a positive urine, it was short-sighted, it was inappropriate, it was destructive. And as judges, we cannot continue to deal with drug addiction in that manner.
That brings up an interesting point, Judge Howsle. The issue of judicial temperament, right? I mean, are judges imposing, these very, very harsh sentences because somehow they're looking for respect or they want to gain a reputation as being tough? When I first started, back in the early 90s, there was always a certain number of judges that carried, that kind of reputation. And just listening to what you're saying, I mean, you're looking obviously, at the common sense approach as to why a judge would do something like that. But, I'm sure we all know that there are those kind of judges that are still looking, to garner reputations based upon harsh, criminal sentences.
If I may, I hear what you're saying, but I don't even know if it's that. I think that it's more of a lack of perspective. I don't think people appreciate or understand what it means to put someone in jail for simply showing up to court late because their bus was late, or to put someone in jail because they don't have an attorney, with the thought that if I put you in jail, the next time you come back, you'll have an attorney because the PD's office will represent you. Understand the consequences associated with incarcerating a person. I always say we have to show some compassion and care about people. If you think about what we're doing to people by putting them in jail, when people are losing their houses, they're losing their jobs, their families, their cars, their employment, their education, their treatment. A lot of things are happening as a result of that decision to incarcerate that person. But even if you don't care about the people, fine, I'm okay with that. Then care about the money. Because if you think about how much money we are wasting by putting people in jail for nonviolent offenses that will never require them to spend a minute in jail when those cases are resolved, it is counterintuitive, it is destructive, it is a lack of perspective and a lack of regard, and it is completely unacceptable. Has to change.
I heard you say you don't care about the people and you're fine with that. That's not what you mean, right?
No, that's not what I said. What I said was
I misunderstood
care
you.
About the people because I care about the people. And if you care about people, you can't possibly think it is a reasonable response to incarcerate someone for coming to court late or to send someone to state prison for one positive urine. I care about people. But if someone on the court does not care about people, I'm not prepared to encourage them or require them to do that. But then just require care and have some concern and regard for our resources. When you look at the jail budget, when I first started as a DA back in 2000, the jail budget was approximately $20 million per year. It's well over $100 million per year now, and violent crime is down. So why are we spending more money on incarceration when violent crime is down? Because of the sentencing habits and the patterns and the behaviors that we engage in when dealing with people. So I care about people, and that's enough for me to do something different. But even if others don't care about people, care about the resources, because we're wasting the resources. People will be better served by having drug and alcohol treatment than sitting in a state prison cell for a period of 18 months.
Yeah, I know you care, but when I heard that, I just wanted to make sure that I gave you an opportunity to clarify. I didn't want somebody listening to it to say, "Oh, Judge Howsey said he doesn't care about the people." Okay, so all right, so
without caring. You can't do this job without caring. If you don't care about people, you shouldn't be here.
I agree, Mr. Malkin.
I totally agree with Judge Howsey. Of course, I think that what he's pointing out, what the issue is the humanity that needs to be taken into account when the judges have somebody in the courtroom and they're dealing with sentencing and they're trying to figure out what to do about somebody who was late to court or violated probation or had a positive marijuana test. They have to understand the person that's there, their story, all of the considerations that go into it, and not just knee-jerk send somebody to jail, as Judge Howsey says. Because when you do that, you're not talking about a person anymore. You're just talking about what you're doing as a judge. Whether or not you care about that person or not is completely out the window now. It's just they don't understand all of the human story that brought that person in the courtroom, and they need to. It's very important if they're going to do the right thing and do justice, then they have to understand that person's story. And if they're not doing that, they're doing a terrible job.
All right. Ms. Watson, did you want to add something additional? I see you raising your hand.
I would like to. It's okay. Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. Yep. That's why we're here.
Yes. And listening to what Judge Howsey brought out, and the question is, and he said, why are we spending all the money, to house people in jail? Well, we're spending those huge dollars because jail is the largest and fastest growing industry across the country. So yes, in order for it to continue to grow, you have to continue to put people in jail. The other part I wanted to bring out is that he talked about it being $59,000 to house somebody in jail. And he was talking about, the both that including state prison systems, the state correctional institutes. Now, let's think about it. If you took that $59,000 and gave somebody a job, they could not only take care of themselves, that's way above the median income. They could also take care of a family. which most of them do have, most people that have been in jail do have families that they need to take care of. So that would be an even better way to resource that money, would be to give people jobs and let them work. Then I wanted to say that as a city magistrate, I would divert cases. I tried to handle everything right there. As much as could be handled right there, I did. You know, some of my colleagues, they hold for court, hold for court, hold for court. You knew when they were on the bench that your case was getting held for court. I did not think that that was my job. I thought that my job was to whittle out, filter out what cases should be held for court, what are serious, what should be held for court, and what can be handled right here. I oftentimes made decisions that I thought the district attorney might be a little disturbed. I thought police officers might be a little disturbed. But frankly, they came back and told me they respected the decisions that I made, that they respected me for making that decision. And so I tried to divert people oftentimes into drug and alcohol programs, mental health programs, give them community service, you know, rather than big fines, because there were also some of my colleagues that would give you a huge fine that nobody could pay, you know, and so, you know, it starts at the lower court level, but then it also takes place on what we like to call big court. And that's what we're all seeking to be, is a on the bench in big court. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You know, I'm so glad that, you know, you guys chose, you know, to come here today. I know that you really, you know, people really don't get a whole lot of opportunities to actually engage with a potential candidate for judge. I know I never did. When I walked into the polls, normally, if, you know, I was a Democrat, so I just hit, you know, all of the names that were associated with Democratic judges. But I think the newer generation, you know, is really not, you know, they're not obligated to a particular party. You know, they want to see who the candidate is and what the substance of that individual, you know, is about. So the final question that I have for you guys is, what or why should a particular constituent vote for you as judge? And Ms. Watson, I see you at the top of my screen, so I want to start with you. And you know, so just tell us, why should someone vote for you for judge?
Well, I'm well qualified. I have adjudicated over 50,000 cases, so I am prepared to take the bench now. I have a heart for the community. I have a heart for people. But we're all qualified. I want to tell you a little story of when I was a magistrate. So, and this is a little back in the day, so to speak, so the laws were a little different. We certainly didn't have medical marijuana like we do now. And we had not too long come out with the rule of under 30 grams being charged with a personal use marijuana. And you could handle it in the ways that you wanted to handle it. Some of my colleagues gave, again, big fines for that. But, you know, I dismiss those. But I had a case where a hippie-looking kind of a guy, looked like he stuck out of the 60s. He was stuck in the 60s, and he came in with a great big bag, not into court, but they had found him with a great big bag filled with loose marijuana. And at that time, that would be considered, and it probably is still now, considered possession with the intent to deliver. It was that much marijuana. And it wasn't packed up or bagged, but it was just enough that that was the charge. It was possession, one charge, and then possession with the intent to deliver. And the district attorney at that time came up, and when I called the case, and they had made an agreement. And the agreement was to throw out the possession with intent to deliver, and the attorney and his client were going to agree to waive the possession charges to court, which I accepted, happy to accept that agreement. And 6 months down the road, the exact same case came in front of me. But this time, it was a young Black man who was in his 20s and a Black attorney as well. And they came when I called the case. I'm waiting for the district attorney to tell me that they had this deal going, like the same deal that they did 6 months ago for someone who was not a minority, and they didn't. And I looked at them and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. District Attorney. I hope that you're not upset with me, and that you know, but I'm going to do what you did 6 months ago. I'm going to throw out the possession with intent to deliver and offer them to waive the possession charges to court, just like you did 6 months ago." And that's how I handled that case. Because for me, I saw it. It was like, this is equity and fairness that's happening right now. So it was my job to make it happen, and I did. And so these are reasons that I should be on the bench, not only because I'm qualified, not only because I'm prepared, but because I have the right heart. I have demonstrated fairness and equity and equal justice for all in every one of my courtrooms on every day in the 26 years that I've heard over 50,000 cases. Thank you.
Thank you. Judge Howsie.
Thank you. Mr. Hollis, there's a saying, statistics would suggest that people recall approximately 20% of what they hear. So I'd like to give your followers the 20% so they can take it with them. Highly recommended by the Bar Association. When we talk about our criminal justice system, it is desperately in need of reform. It is time to change the way that we deal with people. It is time to change the way we deal with our sentences and how we deal with bail. And those are all issues that are at the forefront of everyone's discussion. Those are things we need to look at. Those are things we need to take a look at and reform and improve upon. But when you talk about my life experience, growing up in a low-income community, I understand the issues that bring people to the front door of the court system. I get it. Working in social services, I understand the issues that typically result in a person becoming involved in our court system, family division, criminal division. But when you talk about my work experience, working as a prosecutor, prosecuting perpetrators of physical and sexual abuse of children, and when you talk about my experience working as a defense attorney, working as a director of the public defender's office, where we had to implement reform and change the way things were done to address issues related to bail, issues related to people being languishing in jail for periods of 6 to 8 months without even being convicted of a crime, just because they didn't have the money to post bail. And when you talk about the reforms that our system needs to undergo, already been busy in the public defender's office doing a number of those things. And I'm still doing those things as a judge in the Court of Common Pleas. When you talk about my work experience, my life experience, my work ethic, working 2 full-time jobs while going to law school full-time, and you talk about my perspective, I believe that I am uniquely qualified to continue to serve as a judge in the Court of Common Pleas. And I will humbly ask your followers for their support. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Mr. Malkin.
I have spent 25 years as a civil litigator. I've handled every type of case you can imagine in court, in front of juries and not in front of juries. I've taken great pride in taking the small cases that folks needed so they could have their fair day in court. I'm devoted to the notion of people getting their best day in court. I've spent a bunch of time doing community service and doing everything I can to help people every way I can as a lawyer. To me, being a judge is being a civil servant, serving your community. And it would be an honor and a privilege to continue my community service by being elected to the bench.
Well, you guys, I can't thank you enough. I mean, I know you guys are super busy as your campaigns are just beginning. So the fact that you took time out of your busy schedules to hang out with me means the world. Miss Watson, if someone wants to look you up and maybe send you a message to research your campaign, how can they find you?
In terms of researching my campaign, I'm at WrennaWatson.com. It's my first and last name.com, no periods or anything in there.
WrennaWatson.com.
Yes, that'll take you to my website. Honestly, Todd, I'm a lawyer. I don't mind giving my phone number out, 412-965-7388. I can be reached. That's myself.
Judge Howsie.
Yes, so I can be reached at www.judgealliothowsle.com. Elliot Howsie. That's ELLIOT Howsie, HOWSIE.org. That's our website. We're on Facebook at Elliot Howsie 21 and Elliot Howsie also on LinkedIn. So there's a number of social media platforms where I can be reached. All right. Thank you. Mr. Malkin.
You can find me on Malkin, the number 4 judge, MALKIN, the number 4 judge.com. I'm also at Malkin for Judge on Facebook, Instagram. I even have a Snapchat account if you want to see that. You can see me skating there. I'm a double gold medalist in the United States Figure Skating Association. So I'm the other skating Malkin, if that helps you remember.
You know, this has been an outstanding show. You know, folks, these individuals are highly qualified. And I can tell you from personal experience, you know, that is unique in this particular day and age. So I encourage you to, you know, to hit Wrenna up, you know, to hit the judge up, to look into Mr. Malkin. Each and every one of them are outstanding. And I certainly would hope that either one of these individuals, these fine individuals, you know, at some point take a seat on our bench. So listen, we're going to wrap this show up. And as always, if you like this show and you want to see others, please don't hesitate to hit like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, because fighting for you is what I do.